Hey James, let's go ahead and get this all pulled together. So we know we have issues and we're looking at the volunteers. And so I'm going to go into the KPI data right off of our link sheet. And I'm also going to go in and say what we want it to match to is the volunteer tracker folder and those individual trackers. And I'm going to go in and let's get the December. And so what we want to end up with is making certain the columns of data are correctly set up so they match. And so I will go in here to the calc sheet for G Sheets, and this is what we have on our tracker. And then if I go in and compare the KPI data to this, and so I'll put this up top, and then this one I will move up. So if we look at this, we can see things are basically matching. Vacant, vacant, extra, number of volunteer shifts, number of volunteers. Let me scroll this along a bit. And then I'll do the same thing here. And so this is the information we've got on the tracker. And so we've got, once again, number of volunteers. We don't have volunteers exited. We have shifts exited. And we have volunteers exited. But what we need for sure is the shifts exited, which is there. And it was the new volunteers that we were missing. And so since it goes volunteers and volunteers exited, I just need to put a column right between these two of the new volunteers. So I'll just insert one. I'll go up here and I'll copy it down, which is really the easiest way to do it. And I'll just put it in here. And these are all input cells, so everything is now set up. So KPI data now matches. And what I can do is go in and let's look at some of the stuff we have here. Of course, I'm looking right over it. I can now go into the mission tracking and look at some of the data we have. So for example, here is the calc sheet for November, and we can see that this is all filled in. I don't need the error, but I will copy this. And now if I go into the volunteer data here to November, and I'll just scroll over here. And so here's the shifts. And if I hit this, you can see things are now filling in. And I would need to do the same thing for September, October, December when that's done. But this gives you an idea. So right now everything looks good. We've got stuff all set. So let's go ahead and go to the Looker report for this. And so here's the Looker dashboard, but the one I want to use is the one we normally see. And so here's the board quarterly. This is the one, virtually all of our KPI meetings are looking at. And so we've got this here. I'm going to click on volunteers. And you can see there are several errors here. And what we need to do to fix them is we're going to go to edit. And let's just see what's happening. So I'm going to go to here. And if I click on it, once I've gone to edit, is you're going to see what your data source is, which in this case is the KPI data volunteer data, which is exactly what we want. And then over here is all the fields you have. So if I look at total shifts needed, I'm not really seeing this one. And so we'll need to think on that. And then this one, well, you see there's total shifts needed versus volunteer shifts. So let me click on this. And what you can see down here is there is no total shifts needed. Well, we just added it into the KPI sheet, so why isn't it here we need to update things. So let's look at this. And so what I'm going to do is go to Resource, Manage Added Data Sources. And essentially, here's everything here. So you can see that, this first one happens to be the one we want. It's looking at KPI data, volunteer data, and that is KPI data, volunteer data. And so you can see what we have here. And we know that, like, number of volunteers we didn't have in various things. So let's try and bring this in. So here's the problem. I'm going to go in and say, okay, let's look at what we got. Like I said, number of new volunteers is not here. So we basically have to refresh all of this. And I'm going to go in and say what we want to do is I'm going to refresh the fields. And as you look through it, it pulls it. New fields is number of new volunteers. It's not there, so we have an issue. So we will go in and you'll notice after refreshing, there's the number of volunteers. And so let's look here and say, is this a number? It should be. It will tend to read these and look at them and match what this should be. Sum is fine for what we're doing. So we now have everything. And so what I'm going to do is go back to done. And I'm going to close this out. And now I'm back in here. And if I said, well, how many volunteers did we get? We could put it here, for example. You could now add that because you can see number of new volunteers is right here. So we now have that item here. Now let's go down. Okay, I've gone in and copied all the data from basically to fill things out, which went from September to December. We can see we didn't really start using new volunteers until November, and we're still waiting on December data for this to be pulled together. But as of today, this is everything that we've got. Now, let's go ahead and once again, we'll look back here. And if I was to click on this one, and you will see that now number of new volunteers is still there. And we need shifts needed to make this one work. Well, we don't have that called that, but this is really the number of shifts as compared to number of volunteer shifts here. So what this needs is just for me to pull this down. And I don't need the involved metric. And so you can start seeing what's happening here. And once again, a lot of this data isn't put in yet. And then the same thing here. So if I click on this, we've got the valid, which is the number of shifts. And that will take care of it. If you look below, what's happening is for this other one, is you have to layer the two. And the reason is because it's not going to give you the prior year. This is actually two graphs sitting on top of each other. I just used the arrows to move it up and down so the alignment still stays good. And we don't have this, so I'm just going to grab the number of shifts. So same fix. And that now works. And I'm going to go back to this one up here. And just using the arrow keys, pull it back down. And you can play with the mouse with it and so on. But now at this point, everything is set up. It's ready to go. Now we actually haven't used the new number of new volunteers. And so I'm going to do, just to show that it works, so I'm going to go in and just add a scorecard. And I'll put it right there. And this is obviously not what we want. It's kind of plop something in. We want the number of new volunteers. So I will just put that in. and we have 2 new volunteers. Does this work? Back here, and we can see we didn't start it, there's 2, so we know the number's working. And I think you've already got this, but if you wanted to plop it in, let's say here, I would come up and just draw a box and move this kind of out of the way. And then I would, basically copy this over and then just make certain we're looking at the, number of shifts needed. But that's what we've got there. And at this point, this is ready to go. Like I said, you decide on number of new volunteers and we'll start moving with that. So basically what we did, we went in, we look at errors, a lot of them, like in this case, for some reason, number of shifts disappeared. We added that back. We went into the resource and we looked at volunteer data and we saw there was an issue. We didn't have the new volunteers. We updated it and now we have something to work with. So that's it, James. That's what we got. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.